Welcome home. It's Irish Family History with curious news and notes, celebrating our 4th year of this podcast at the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. One of 6 broadcast series from the Hedge School at irishroots.com. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host, publisher of rare Irish books and information on every county in Ireland since 1978. Be sure to read our blog, complete with links to click on from this podcast, and search our master index and books for free. Molly, wet the tea. Katie, bar the door. Sweeney, clear that floor and bring out the Irish dancers. It's time we get this show on the road. And the road we're on today, that would be show number 174 of the Irish Family History podcast, with curious news and notes from Ireland, from the Irish Roots Cafe and the Irish Hedge School. And boy, we've got some good stuff today. Among today's topics are, the family of the day is Powers. The Irish county of the month is Waterford. Searching for the family of Conlon. Curious news, an Irish potato bright spot. Number 5, web page of the month would be the Irish Hedge School, the new one. And number 6, curious note, Waterford Crystal is back. Got a little video on that. And number 7, the 1 Minute podcast. What were the Hedge schools anyway? That's a good question. Everybody should know that. Came out of the old, you might say, the old Bardic system, and then that was destroyed, and this was born from within that. Well, notes from Mike. What's happening this week here at the cafe? Thanksgiving is upon us, and all is well. Number 2, the Hedge School singers have been making the first public appearances, and of course, sometimes thoughtfully in crowded pubs with lots of noise around. That covers up some mistakes for practicing. But hey, we're getting better, and Maria, she's made her first public debut now, plus on the song podcast, she did a little Oro Shade of Ahawalia. So we're coming right along, and we're looking for folks who like traditional Irish song here in the Kansas City area. If you'd like to join us or just sit in for a session, let us know. We're trying to get something started, and you know how hard that can be. And number 3, our web page for the month is going to be the Hedge School page. You can go to irishroots.com and look in the left-hand column, and it will say Hedge School, and we're sort of reworking that to give an overview of what we're doing and why and what the school is and how you might learn something or might help, and we're open for suggestions on that too, so take a look. That's at irishroots.com. Now, next we got coming up here the 1 Minute podcast. Oh, that's going to be fun. What did I pick today? Let me see. Irish Hedgerow History Lessons, and this would be the one on the origin of the Irish Hedge Schools, which is really a fascinating thing if you haven't studied it. Of course, they sort of were weaned out there starting in the beginning of the 19th century. They started to fade, but boy, what a story that is. And we'll just give it a little excerpt from the beginning of that Irish Hedgerow History podcast. That's coming up next. Okay, here it is. We've got the 1 Minute podcast. What were the Hedge schools all about? This might give you just a small idea. This is from a podcast I did with Peter on the Hedgerow History Lessons. You can listen to that anytime. But let's listen in now and see what it might be like. Might tell you a little bit about why I voted for this name for the series. And I put it out on a blog, and I entitled it, I Never Carried the Sod. And it talks about the Irish Hedge School heritage in general and how they were founded in the 17th century under the penal laws. And the Catholics were prevented from teaching or building a school, and under penalty of law, if anybody tried to cross that barrier of having a building or even a house to teach in. That brought about those outlaw teachers that went out and taught the children and traveling strangers in the open air. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And, one of the children there, one of the students might serve as a lookout for the authorities. That reminds me of when I was a boy and we played Cowboys and Indians. That made it a lot more fun. I don't know how it was back then. It might not have been quite as much fun as it was in those days. Now, the teacher might get paid in butter or with a few shillings. And boy, in those classes there, Peter, what classes did they teach? What subjects was that? That gives you a little idea on the Hedge schools. And one other thing I always remembered is people sometimes even today say, well, I never carried the sod. And sometimes to get into that school, you had to carry your piece of sod to heat the fire, to heat the hearth in the whatever room or outdoor accommodations it was. And you had to carry that sod to school to get into school, especially if it was divided up into people's turns. So if you carried the sod, that means you went to school, and that was just part of your duties. And if you never carried the sod, it means you never went to school, or the Irish school, so to speak. But coming up, gosh, by the end of the 1800s, the schools were all but gone. There might have been a few left, and but 100 years or so before that, they started disappearing with the relaxation of the laws, and the Irish could teach their own way at their own places, and that changed everything. It was a good thing that it would happen, but we should remember the old bardic systems and how that came down and what was changed into the Hedge schools. Here comes the book of the day. Well, now here's the book of the day. I'm calling it the book of the month. County Waterford, Ireland, Genealogy and Family History Notes. We've got a little video on that today, too. And, here's an excerpt from the book given the most numerous families in Waterford, along with variant spellings. I've got that full listing on the blog. And, I do that in all of my county books, just to show what families were most numerous in what counties. And some names like Murphy, Kelly, Sullivan are everywhere, but other names, they're not. So here's the 19th century birth index and some of the names they say were most popular then, and that's in Waterford, and that's Power and Walsh and O'Brien and Murphy and Ryan and McGraw or McGrath. I don't know how you want to pronounce that. Foley, Flynn, Morrissey, Kelly, Phelan, Sullivan, Whalen, McCarthy, Butler, and Tobin. So those are some good old Irish names everybody recognizes. And you know that most of the old Irish names can have that Mac or O before the name dropped or added back on at will. Sometimes a guy would go into town with the authorities and he'd drop that O or Mac real quick. But when he was out there talking among his friends, he was always known with the Mac or O before his name. It was a matter of custom. And of course, that apostrophe over our O today is a remnant of the old Irish language, the fada. That fada stood for something. It was a little accent on that O to make it stand out. So that's something to remember. If you ever start learning Irish, that fada is going to be very important. And many old Irish names, too, were translated or mistranslated into English from the original Gaelic. I remember names like, Cuneen could have been translated into rabbit in English. So if you're searching your family and you're having some troubles, you might see if there were some common translation mistakes made, or I don't even know if you could call it a mistake. You might call it a custom. And remember that there's two more basic research sources for the 19th century, and they're the Tithe Allotment books and Griffith's Survey of Ireland. And those are two pretty basic works if you're researching, especially in the 19th century. Those are two you got to look at. And now they're popping up on the web more and more all the time, sometimes in little fragments and sometimes the whole lot of them. So keep your eye out for that. If you don't know where to search and you're just starting, type that in your old search engine there. You can make it the Tithe Allotment books for around 1820, 1830, or Griffith's Survey, getting closer to 1860. It might help you out, but it's something you got to check out if you're looking for family in that century. Hey, three things to remember. We've got a podcast that I talk in, and it's an audio show. We have a blog reader that reads our blog. We also have the blog that we do. We make notes on every show that we do audioly and put it on the blog, and sometimes we add things in. And then we've got the blog reader, which is a computerized reader that reads the actual words, computerized, so to speak. I think that's still looking. I'm going to have to check it out. Hey, and also remember, coming up, Irish potatoes are making a big comeback, a bright spot, you might say, instead of a dark spot. But now it's time to raise our eyes for the Magnificent Seven, give thanks and ask for help. Number 1, B.T. Gormley of Johannesburg, South Africa, your Irish Book of Arms has shipped. William Green of Youngstown, Ohio, welcome as a new member. Thomas Tracy of Ohio, your Irish genealogies have shipped. And number 4, welcome Edna Powers of Morgan, California as a new member. Looking for information on the husband's great-grandparents, both born Ireland, Michael Powers in 1937 and 1853 to the USA, died 1960, who married Elizabeth Walsh, who was born 1850 to the U.S., 1854, died 1917. We've got the specifics on the blog if you're interested. Both lived in Chicago and then settled in Elmhurst, Illinois. They say they can't find any information on Elizabeth Walsh's parents, so they're looking for it. Number 5, Janice Austin of Rockland, Maryland. Your family's a cork ship. Number 6, Kathleen Fulcher of Roseville, Virginia. Welcome as a new member, researching Conlon. Got the details on the blog. And John Blake of Anaheim, California. Your family's of Galway has shipped. Hey, that list reminds me to thank all of you each time I play it, and thanks to each and every one of you, members and patrons who bought some books. Without you, the podcasts aren't possible, and sponsors are welcome and needed, and we're coming up with some new things with this Hedge School, so keep your eyes open on that. The family name of the day is Powers, and today's family history is in honor of member Edna Powers, and related spellings of the name, D-Poor, and you can spell power like P-O-W-R-E. You could spell power like that back in the old days, or even P-O-O-R. So keep your eyes open for spellings. That's part of Variant Spelling Group in the Guide to the Variant Spellings of Irish Family Names. It's listed right in there. Got a link on the blog. History of the name. Let's see what little notes we might have on it. One of the most 60 numerous names in Ireland. Power is spelled as poor, le poor, and power, like I mentioned before, and it's said to have been taken from the French pauvre, which means poverty-stricken, I think, and the family arrived in England in 1066 with William the Conqueror. That's a famous date, and just a little bit later they arrived in Ireland 100 years or so. Now the family, when they arrived in Ireland with the Normans in the 12th century, made quite a swath. And in 1177, King Henry II granted the county of Waterford, the complete county, to Robert Lepore, who became Power. He was the king's marshal. And the Lepores, from the 13th to the 16th century, they held titles of barons of Donisle and Carramore and viscounts of Decies and earls of Tyrone. So they were for sure in more than one location. And numerous in the counties of Waterford and Kilkenny for sure. The name eventually became spelled regularly as Power at P-O-W-E-R, and they held most of the baronies of Decies and Upper Third, and their lands were referred to as Power's Country. So if you're a family member, you got to get out there and see Power's Country, don't you? And that's all taken from the Book of Irish Families, Great and Small. It's just a partial extract. And we also looked in the Irish family, the Irish Book of Arms for the family arms, or the individual arms, it might be more properly said. And we found that Delapour as Powers is given in the Irish Book of Arms, so 3 cheers for that. Hey, remember, coming up later this episode, the top 3 destinations for the Irish when they get on a plane. Where do they go? We'll have an answer to that. The Free Master Index. If you go to our Free Master Index and type in the name Powers, you're going to see it's listed there 48 times. Here are a few examples. Powerstown in the families of County Dublin. Powers of Wexford is found in the Annals of Ireland by the 4 Masters. Powers in the families of County Limerick, Ireland, very easily. And P. Powers in the Irish families on the California Trail. And, hey, here's an old one. It's, I'll have that in a second. We also find the name in the old books like the Genealogical History of the Milesian Families of Ireland and in the County Waterford Genealogy and Family History Notes, as well as the County Tipperary Genealogy and Family History Notes. Now, you can use that free index to check out your surname. Just remember to do not put the O or Mac before the name if it's a prefix, so to speak. Put the root of the name in there and press the button, and all the books that your name is in come right up there, and it gives you an idea of maybe even how the name's situated. Say if most of the hits come up from Northern Ireland, well, that's where you should research, or that's where the odds say your family came from, or the name. It's just one more little helpful hint, free of charge at the Irish Roots Cafe, and the Hedge School makes real good use of that when people are just first starting out on their name and don't have a clue, and they want to see if there really is a connection to their family in Ireland. That's one way to do it. You know, how Irish are you? Well, take a look at the books. If you show up in there 1,000 times, you're way too numerous. And if you're only in there 2 or 3 times, well, maybe there's been a spelling change and you don't know what you're looking for. Nah, surely that couldn't be. Ooh, now we got a fun one coming up here. Around the World in Irish Ways, it's the web page and the videos of the month. Number 1, the Powers family from Michael Powers, born 1727 in Ireland, died 1807 in Connecticut. Got a link on the web. And number 2, Mahon Falls in the Comeragh Mountains in Waterford, Ireland. That's a nice little video. Might take a look at that. Link on the blog. And Waterford Crystal Factory is open now. And The House of Waterford, I think, is the title they've got. Got that video on YouTube, link on the blog. And if you want to know how to make Irish mashed potatoes, the great recipe in a video shows you just how to do it. A nice little Colleen's up there giving you directions. And, of course, they call Irish mashed potatoes Cole Cannon, so you'll be enjoying that one. And also see our video shorts at irishroots.com. On the Irish video, there's a link on the left-hand side. Left-hand side of that page has the links to all our pages, or most of them. It's a good place to start, and I'll be doing some new videos here in the next couple of months. So if you want to see anything in particular on any of our 7 Hedge School subjects, Irish language, song, history, Irish America, genealogy, let me know, and I'll try to answer those questions for you on a video. How many times do you get a chance to do that? Let me see. What do we have here? We've got... Oh, yeah, coming up. Oh, it's good. It's the Curious News and Notes from Ireland today. So that's going to be interesting. I wonder what I wrote down there. That was last night I put this all together. I need a staff to organize my thoughts, There's always one guy who has a lot of thoughts, and if he only had people to help him, he'd be successful. What did I just say? Well, it's Curious News and Notes from Ireland today. Number 1, reports give that Susan Boyle, that amazing singer discovered on TV not too long ago, she's the first solo singer to simultaneously have number 1 albums in the U.S. and in the U.K. twice in 12 months. Susan is billed as Scots-Irish, and her parents were from County Mayo, don't you know? And only 2 groups, they weren't solos, 2 groups, the Monkees in 67 and the Beatles in 69, did the same thing as her. And, of course, they were groups, not solos. Link on the blog. Number 2, Gary Lee, he has 3 gold medals for bow making from the largest competition in the world. No, it's not the bow and arrow, but the violin, viola, and cello bows. They cost anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 euro, and he uses... Brazilian wood and Mongolian horse hairs for starters. Now, I wonder, do I have any Mongolian horse hairs around here, or would a store be selling them? That's a new one on me. Link on the blog. Number 3, Paddy Gleeson of County Clare held the title of the oldest man in Ireland until quite recently. God rest his soul. At age 106, he credited the lack of drink, an odd cigarette, and being nice to all as keys to a long life. Well, isn't that a good one? Got a link on the blog to that story. Number 4, Roberta O'Brien was the Naval Service's first commanding officer in Ireland, and she's completed her first 2 years rotation as ship's captain. They got any O'Briens out there, and if you happen to be a nice lady, you might have a future in the Navy after you be reading this. Number 5, Doo-Hop search engine has recorded the top 10 destinations of the Irish when they get on a plane, and Dublin is first, Orlando, Florida is second, and Las Vegas, Nevada is third. And then you got London and Budapest and more of those international cities down there, but very interesting. Number 6, there's a rare demand for Irish potatoes cropping up. There's a bumper harvest in Ireland, but not in Europe. They're having hard times in Europe, and you know what? They're shipping the potatoes all over the place. I saw even Russia was getting some because they're having hard times. So the Irish are a good people, They did a lot. When their potato crop foiled, they were in bad shape. They didn't get enough help. Link on the blog. Number 7, if you're just starting out on a genealogy search, remember those gigantic services like Ancestry.com. They've got billions of records, and just be sure to know exactly who you're looking for and what the date is that you might be looking for them in. It'd be nice when you went into search if you had the date of birth or date of death, but then that might be what you're looking for in the first place. But at any rate, a lot of them give free trials. I just checked Ancestry. They're still giving a free 14-day trial if you sign up now, and it's worth a shot if you're really serious about research and you're hot on the trail. Lots of free resources out there, too, so don't forget about that. That does it. That's all for today, folks. Joseph, warm up those pipes. Remember, we have a broadcast series on Irish song and recitation, on local history of the Irish in America, and on 2,000 years of Irish history, as well as on the counties, and something special coming up on Irish language, I hope. We've got all that and more at our Hedge School at irishroots.com. And we've been known to appear, exhibit, teach, and even sing for your special events. Be sure to book in advance if it's important, and write me at my American address at Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri, 64116. Leave a message by phone at 816-256-3360. Reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com. Skype me at the Irish Roots Cafe. Get me on MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, and Irish Central. Members foot the bill so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members. And away.